All right, so this is Chris Hill with President's Club going over your talking points for the next 2 weeks. And so these are the points that I want you to cover when you reach out to people. It is coming from John Maxwell's book, Today Matters. And so the topic that I want you to discuss with the agents as you speak to them is today's priorities give me focus. Today's priorities give me focus. Begin with 5 reasons why priorities matter today. Number one, time is our most precious commodity. How you spend your time is much more important than how you spend your money. Most people spend more energy on saving their money than they do their time, but you can get more money, you can't get more time. So what you're looking to explain to them is the way they invest their time is much more important than the way they invest their money. Because if they are investing or wasting their time on the wrong activities, they're not going to have the money anyways in the future. So how do you spend your time and where do you spend your time at? And then your priorities determine how you spend your time. One of the secrets to choosing how to spend your time is by the priorities that you create in order to have the time spent correctly. Number two, on why priorities matter today is we cannot change time, only our priorities. Time's the same. There's 1,440 minutes in a day, 24 hours in a day, and that can't change. You can't get more of it. You can't get less of it. I told Crystal last night, I said, I wish I had a few more hours in the day, and I think all of us at some point have made that statement, but the truth is you can't change time. You can't take away from it. You can't add to it. It is what it is. But if you'll change your priorities, you can change how you approach time. And so if everybody has the same amount of time, it's more about how you approach it than it is the amount of time you have. Number three, we cannot do everything. Some people want to do everything that there is. You have to choose what it is you're going to want to do. One man said this, you can have anything you want, but you cannot have everything you want. You have to choose. So you're trying to explain to them they've got to choose what things they want to do, and then we'll give you some points later on how to do that. Number four, we choose our life by how we spend time. You have to help them make the connection that when they spend their time, that is choosing their life. They're connected together. We want to say the way I spend my time. If I spend time goofing off on my phone or doing something that's not with my family or not with something that's important to me, it's just time and it wastes away. It's not a big deal. But that time is directly connected to the life that they have, and you've got to make the connection. Number five, priorities help us to choose wisely. Robert McCain said this, the reason most goals are not achieved is that we spend our time doing second things first. All that means is the reason most things aren't accomplished is because we're not working on what is important. We're not working on the priorities, but instead on what we want to work on. People who reach their potential and fulfill their dreams determine and act on their priorities daily. All they're doing is choosing to work on their priorities instead of the other things in life that's going on. So, making the decision to act on your priorities daily, ask yourself these 3 questions. These are the questions that you want to ask them. Number one, what is required of me? What is required of me? What has to be done? Number two, what gives me the greatest return? Everybody can look at their own life and see there's some things that I get more of a return for. Some activities give me a higher yield than others. And so you have to identify those things. But then number 3 is what gives me the greatest reward. One man said this, if you only do what you must and what is effective, you will be highly productive, but you will not be content. You need to ask yourself what gives you personal satisfaction so you can work on that as well. Here's where most people mess up. Most people start with the reward and then go no further. Reward is important, but it's the third on the list. First is what's required of me, then what gives me the highest return, then I ask myself what gives me the greatest reward, and it's in that order. All right, so making the discipline a priority. There's 5 ways to live your life according to your priorities. This is where you'll spend the bulk of your time talking with the agent. Number 1, evaluate priorities daily. Evaluate priorities daily. Priorities may change often. They're not something that's stuck in stone, and so you're trying to walk them through the concept of they're constantly having to identify what are their priorities. things in life change. You might have a child. You might have a new job that you have to work on. You may have something else you've got going on. Priorities change daily, so you have to evaluate them daily. You can't just continue off of what's yesterday. You have to check and make sure, is this still a priority in my life? Number two, plan your time carefully. One man said this. He said, he asked the guy, so what is, if somebody could give me some advice on how to make my company more profitable. It was Charles Schwab. If I could make my company more profitable, more productive, he said I would pay them a large sum of money. A man walked up to him and he said, I want you to take out a sheet of paper and write down the 6 things that are most important that need to be done tomorrow. Well, there are 6 things that need to be done most important tomorrow. So he wrote the 6 things down. And then he said, I want you to rank them 1 through 6, what's most important down to what's least important. Then when you wake up tomorrow, start on number 1. When you finish number 1, go to number 2. Don't worry about the others. Just do number 1, number 2, and then go down to number 3, and so on. Even if you only make it to the first 3, you will have done the most productive thing that you could have done in that day. So take your sheet of paper out and write down what are the 6 most important things that I need to get done tomorrow, and then rank them and work on the top number 1, then number 2, and number 3. Most people mess up because they get number 6 and number 5 done, and they don't get number 1 and number 2 done. Typically, number 6 and number 5 are easier for us. We like them better, but number 1 and number 2, as Brian Tracy would say, is that ugly, large frog that you have to eat first in order to get to success. Plan your calendar, use your schedule. Number 3. So number 1, evaluate your priorities daily. Number 2, plan your time carefully. Number 3, follow your plan. Things that matter the most must never be at the mercy of things that matter the least. Stick to your plan. Make sure you're moving through it. Things are going to happen. Stuff's going to come up. You've chosen this as a priority. Keep it as a priority. Number 4, delegate whenever possible. Most people are either 2 things. They're a clinger or a dumper. Clingers hold on to everything, try to keep it for themselves, and dumpers try to get rid of everything. I'm oftentimes accused of being a dumper, not a clinger. We know many people that are clingers, and we call them hoarders. A lot of people are hoarders of all the tasks that they could be doing. John Maxwell said this: if someone else can do a task that I'm doing it 80% as well as I do, then I hand it off. He said, oftentimes they go on to do it better than I can anyways. Peter Drucker said this: no executive has ever suffered because his team was strong and effective. No executive has ever suffered because his team was strong and effective. So delegate whenever it's possible. Look around. What are things that they should be delegating to someone else so that they can work on more productive things? Number 5, invest in the right people daily. We often spend priority time with problem people when we should be spending that time with potential people. The people that complain the most, that yell the most, cause the most problems are who we spend our time with. But the truth is, we should be spending our time with potential people instead. Here's how Maxwell chooses how to spend his time: looking at people. Number 1, their value to the team, their natural ability, their responsibility, their timing, their potential, and their mentoring fit. So you're looking through the people that you've got to work with, and you've got to choose, am I investing wisely in the people that I'm spending my time with? And then lastly, reflecting on your priorities. Here are the questions that you want to ask the agent as you're talking to them, as you're wrapping up the conversation. Number 1, have you already made the decision to determine and act on important priorities daily? Have you already made that decision that you're going to stick to your priorities no matter what? That they're important to you, so you're going to keep them at the forefront of your mind and of your activities. Number 2, based on that decision you made concerning priorities, what is the one discipline you must practice today and every day in order to be successful? What is that priority that's important to you that you have to do every single day on a regular basis? Number 3, how have you looked at time in the past? Has it been a precious commodity to you, or have you just kind of treated it as just something that fades away? Number 4, you want to practice a priority approach. Here's a priority approach according to Maxwell. Number 1, prioritize. Know what is important in your life. What is important in your activities, in your job, whatever you're trying to accomplish. Number 2, organize. Decide how will it be done. Take some time and look, what is it going to take to accomplish that task? Number 3, plan. Decide when you'll do it. Put it on your calendar. You don't have to do everything right now. You should be planning things out in the future and scheduling things. Number 4, communicate. Share your priorities with your team. Who can you enlist to help you? Who can you delegate to help you? Who can you enlist to help you as an accountability partner? Communicate the priorities to your team. Let them help you stay on track. Number 5, execute. Follow through with your plan. Stick to your priorities and accomplish them. And then number 6, evaluate. Examine yourself and your results in the light of your priorities. At the end of the week, look back and see how did I do on my priorities, and then restart. Go back through and evaluate the priorities again and do it all over again next week. The big idea, what you're trying to get across to them, is their priorities matter. So you need to help them figure out what are their priorities. Well, that's based on what do they want to accomplish. So find out what they want to accomplish next week, and then figure out from that, here are the priorities that go along with it, and let's stick to those.